Hi, you're back with Paul McAndrew and Lisa Overcash, and I'm co-director at the Wellness Station, and you may have looked at one of the earlier videos of myself with Lisa and River, her service dog. And today we're talking about some of the various aspects of Lisa's experience with recovering from many different physical challenges.
Right.
Hip replacement, revisions of that hip replacement, some spinal surgeries.
Yes.
Yeah. And you came in one session
Yes.
and you mentioned, and Lisa's very active in dance. And in the first video, I did mention there was a reason why Lisa has a service dog. And at the end of this video, I will tell you why. So you have to look, I guess, back to the first video if you want to be introduced directly to River. But you came in and you mentioned the dance class that you were engaged in.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to tell me a little bit about that and what you were looking for, and then maybe we can take a look at the lesson that we created that helped you with that.
Well, I was working on a dance that was a waltz, and I was expected to lift my leg in order for my partner to take hold of the calf. But in the process, I was needing to lift my right thigh. The right thigh is the hip that's related to the hip replacement. So from there, I noticed an intense pain, and that wasn't the first time I'd noticed, but it was really hurting then, and it was interfering with me being able to do the choreography that I wanted to do. And I even made him say, can we just switch legs, because it hurts me too much to lift this one that way. Can we tweak the choreography a little bit so I can lift my left leg? So we did, but you said, well, why do you need to do that? I said, well, it hurts too bad for me to talk to this leg and make this leg lift, because I have to just lift the leg. And then the thing that I remember you saying, well, why do you just have to lift this leg? Why don't we talk about how we can create a lesson to teach you how to use your other parts of your body to help you lift the leg? Well, that sounded pretty foreign to me, but I was intrigued.
Yeah, so in the earlier lesson, and the earlier video, we actually did the pelvic clock sitting. So before you lie down, go ahead and sit like you were going to do that lesson.
Yeah.
And just rock your pelvis back and forth between 12 and 6. So if there was a little clock dial into the center of Lisa's pelvis, she's moving towards 12 now, her tailbone is up. And feel free, by the way, to participate in this at home. You'll find it really interesting and maybe beneficial for any issues that you might have for yourself. Okay, so notice that when you lower your tailbone, your back is rounding. Okay? Now the next time that you come forward, pause. Now as you lower your tailbone and you let your head drop down, I'm going to ask you to pick your right knee, your right foot off the floor, and let your right knee come up towards you as you drop the tailbone. That's it. And then go ahead and raise the tailbone and bring it back down. Repeat that a couple of times. And see if you notice anything happening with the left foot as the right knee is coming up.
Pressing it into the floor, or it automatically does that.
It automatically does that. Now why do you think you might press this foot into the floor if you want to bring this leg up? Isn't that leg just going to act independently? Or is it connected to the rest of you?
Well, that's what I thought. That's what I learned was not true.
You thought it was just coming from that
Well,
hip.
that's what my brain used to think.
Sure.
My brain used to
Of
think,
course.
lift my right leg. And actually, I don't know if you remember, but I was thinking when I was trying to figure out how to do this move, it was like, oh no, here comes that move. I got to talk my left leg into lifting, even though it hurts. That's what my brain was saying.
Yeah.
Get ready for it, because it's going to hurt.
Yeah.
And you were saying, well, we need to approach it whole differently. Not just your leg movement, but your brain and how you process that information.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So you can feel, even sitting here, even though this is an easy, much easier movement than standing and kicking the leg out, that when you bring this leg up, this leg is pushing down.
Yeah.
Okay, so viewer, you might be curious, well, why would that happen? So, how about if you go ahead and drop off your boots,
Yes.
and then come on and lie down on your back
Okay.
with your head up this end right here.
Okay.
So the lesson that we created was, if you bring your legs up, yeah, is first of all, just doing a basic pelvic rocking. Okay, so Lisa's, that motion that she was doing when she was sitting, the rocking of the pelvis back and forth, you're doing that same motion now. A little bit different use of the muscles because there's a different relationship to gravity. Okay. Now how about if you bring your heels a little bit closer to your buttocks, okay? and then pause for a moment. Now let's go back to the rolling of the pelvis, and when the tailbone is up, can you feel your feet doing anything? As,
Pressing into the floor, or into the mat.
yeah, so the feet are pressing, and when you push with your feet and your pelvis goes towards your head, you're using your abdominal muscles in front, you're using your buttock muscles from behind. Those are the muscles, the buttock muscles are the ones that are pushing down. So now, if you want to bring this leg up, what happens?
You press into the floor, or into the foot, into the mat.
Yeah.
And then what I've learned is that with my brain focusing on that, it feels like it has a partnership with the right leg.
Yeah.
So instead of my brain thinking, oh, I gotta lift my right leg, it's gotta hurt, I'm thinking, press in the right automatically lifts, and the pain is pretty much non-existent.
Yeah. And Lisa, when you think about joints and you think about different parts of your body, when you press down with this foot, what has that got to do with helping the right leg come up?
Well, from what I've learned here is that it's like a hinging response.
Yeah.
It's like, it's more of an invitation to like, okay, I'm gonna ask you to lift your leg when I press into the floor, and then lift it up. It's like, it's more of a response.
It's a response. Now, when you pushed with both feet, what did it do to your pelvis? Which way did it make your pelvis go? Towards your head or towards your feet? When you push with both feet.
Well, it kind of feels, sometimes it could go either way depending on what I'm asking it to do. But
Right.
it feels more like it tilts upward.
Right. The tailbone's coming up and the pelvis is getting a little bit
Yes.
closer to your head.
Yes.
Now, so if I said to you, bring your right knee up over your chest, what bony area is between your spine and your thigh? Your pelvis.
Sure.
So when you push with this foot, that left buttock muscle is engaging. That's the push. The left buttock muscle's engaging. It's sending your pelvis in that direction, and then your pelvis is saying to your thigh, hey, come on along.
Yes, definitely. I remember that now. I remember you talking about it's not just the leg and the legs working together. It's the pelvis is a partner. It's like
Yes.
the legs are a partner to the pelvis. But what I was doing is I was just asking the leg to do all the work.
Right.
When actually I could share the work
Yeah, go ahead.
to the leg and the pelvis.
I'm going to show right here on the skeleton. Lisa was thinking of her motion as coming just from the hip joint and only half of the hip joint, the ball moving in the socket. Whereas and this doesn't move enough for me to show you, and I'm going to go to the other and Lisa, you can come on up to sitting again. That was great, thank you. So when Lisa was kicking this leg up in a dance class, she was doing it just in her brain. Her awareness was just of that right hip joint, and in fact only the femur side of the hip joint, the ball moving in the socket. But when she pushed with the other leg, the muscle back here does this to the pelvis. So that motion sends that leg up. Just as, once you do that again sitting, if you roll your pelvis, push with this foot, it's going to drop the tailbone and up comes that leg.
Right.
Yeah,
This is a
way
natural.
easier.
It's like
Way
a
easier.
natural occurrence.
Yeah, yeah. That's a beautiful way of putting it. It's a natural occurrence. But it's not natural. It's no more natural than me sitting at the piano and being able to play it if I haven't worked at it, until I make the connection between.
Right. I mean, now it feels like a natural occurrence.
Yeah.
Before, I didn't know it was even a possibility. I feel like I had to muscle through the pain in order to make the dance move look nice.
Beautiful way of putting it, yeah. And that is so much when you use willpower, which willpower is a very important characteristic to have. It's what gets us through many challenging times in life. All your surgeries, etc., giving birth to children, etc. By the way, Lisa has 4 kids,
Yeah.
as we do, my wife and I. And the willpower, it's something that we need to bring our fortitude to challenging situations, but being able to know how to best engage in that situation so that we're not having to force, but that we're actually moving or using our intelligence and using the intelligence of our body in a way that is effortless or relatively less forceful and effortful. So there's less strain on the muscles, less pressure on the joints, there's more comfort.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So the session that you came in after that, lesson, you came in and you said to me, when I move the leg now as a lever, it's easier, less pain, it's better balance when standing. It's a wonderful feeling of appreciating that one leg helps the other, giving the other leg permission to participate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was like I found a partner that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
instead of feeling like I had to have pain in order to make something look well, or try to make it look well, or alter something in order to use the other part of my body,
Yeah.
it was like a pre-programmed dance in my brain if I allowed it to happen.
Yeah. 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 They've done a lot of research on movement because I think probably of the baby boomers and all the challenges that people are having in the health world. And one of the things that they've come to determine, which really fits with the Feldenkrais method, creating more and more options for how you use yourself, is that if you do something a couple of different ways, if you accomplish a function a couple of different ways, the way that is more pleasurable, your nervous system will be gravitating towards that. Now, the way that's more habitual, you might have to remind yourself of for a while. So you might be back in that dance class, let's say you took a break for a month or so, and you were back in the dance class and you're doing the same move. You might kick that leg up once or twice and go, oh, don't forget about the pelvis, don't forget about the other leg, don't forget about all the other participation, because we do tend to fall back into our habitual patterns, and we have to. I mean, as I'm speaking now, as you're speaking, we're relying on habitual patterns. The downside of habitual patterns is that often they're not based on the most efficient way to move to begin with. So we learn in a not as efficient manner. So I might have learned to come up to standing as an infant in a playpen, holding on to the sides of the playpen, and my brain's pattern for standing and walking includes upper body tension. So that pattern, when I'm in my 30s and 40s and 50s, might play itself out as the tissues complaining at me saying, Paul, enough is enough, I'm unhappy, please can you change that? And that's what we do with the Feldenkrais method, of learn how to actually come up to sitting, standing, use of oneself without that extra effort and tension, so that you've actually expanded your movement repertoire. And that's what you did in your dance class.
Right, I can't say I walked into the class or even during practice at home and immediately did it. It was more
Right.
of I had to practice it. But I feel like there was a point where I kept practicing and reminding myself to do it these certain ways. But at some point it did create this magical connection where I did it and I automatically do it. And then now every time I move, I'm thinking, is there a smoother, easier way to ask my body to do that? Why would I not try to be kind to my
Yeah.
body when I would like for it to move a certain way, instead of giving it a harder way of doing things?
Yeah, yeah, beautiful. And so I want to say at the end of this recording that Lisa was diagnosed a little more than 15 years ago with multiple sclerosis, with MS. And we had a session recently in which we were talking about movement options, and you got really excited. You said, my gosh, I've been told, you have this scarring, the tissues are damaged, and therefore, what can you do? And do you remember what you said about that?
Well, yes. I was told that these lesions in my brain create scars, and those scars prevent messages from getting through. But I had also read some other literature that states, well, maybe your brain is capable of, and the research is still going, capable of finding another path to create the message. And so I feel like this is what's happening. Challenges that seem to not get through, it seems like it's a freedom and an opening for a pathway to make a new movement-based action that may not even be possible yet, but with each readiness that I try, that I've learned here, and then tried that, I'm at home practicing, and there are times I'm like, wow, that was a whole lot easier.
Yeah. Well, what I tell people who have any kind of neurological involvement is that, number one, what this method can do is it can optimize how you move and how you always have moved. So any less than efficient movement patterns that you have, we want to make them more efficient, so that if you have less responsiveness because of a neurological muscular constitution, that why not optimize what is working well? The second half of that, which is really very exciting, is that if we give a person like yourself new adventures in movement and a very sound, basic feel for why you're doing it. So, okay, I'm going to practice this. I'm going to practice pushing with that left foot, and I'm going to practice now lifting my left leg, my right leg, the other leg. If you practice that, you're providing the brain with an input that stimulates new formation of neurons, and we know that in neuroplasticity. So there's that whole idea of like, well, what about right adjacent to where those lesions are, other neurons can pick up that function?
Absolutely. One of the things that just came into my mind that we talked about before that I really like and appreciate is fatigue is a problem for me. And so I feel like I've had to calculate and do this energy management and conservation very hypervigilantly. But now that I'm learning to move with greater ease and less effort, that opens up more space for me to actually say yes to more things that I want to do and have the energy in order to do them.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Lisa, thank you so much.
You're
It's
welcome.
been wonderful having you. Yeah, thank you. And thank you.